Good evening, Professor Theory. My name is Shauna Gidwani. My subject that I have decided to discuss is on prison. Prison, the very word, creates a shudder within. My stance is that I do believe in prison reform, but I also have a caveat to that statement, which I will get to later. Imprisonment disproportionately affects individuals and families living in poverty, which is very, very sad. When an income-generating member of the family is in prison, the rest of the family must adjust to this severe loss of income, whether big or small. The impact can be especially severe in poor, developing countries where the state does not provide any financial assistance to the indigent, where it is not unusual for one breadwinner to financially support an extended family network. Thus, the family experiences financial losses as a result of the imprisonment of one of its members, exacerbated by the new expenses that must be met, i.e., the cost of a lawyer, food for the imprisoned person, transport to the prison so that we can have conjugal visits, and so on. When released, often with no prospects for employment, former prisoners are generally subject to social economic exclusion and thus very vulnerable to an endless cycle of poverty, marginalization, criminality, and more imprisonment. Thus, the recidivism rate keeps growing and perpetuating. It also contributes directly to the impoverishment of the prisoner, of his family, with a significant cross-generational effect, and of society by creating future victims and reducing future potential economic performance. Prisons also have very serious health implications. Prisoners are likely to have existing health problems on entry into prison, as they are predominantly from poorly educated and socially economic deprived sectors of the general population with minimal access to adequate health services. Their health conditions deteriorate in prisons, which are overcrowded, where nutrition is very poor, sanitation inadequate, and access to fresh air and exercise often unavailable. Psychiatric disorders are sometimes ignored and mistreated. HIV infection, tuberculosis, hepatitis B and C, sexually transmitted diseases, skin diseases, malaria, malnutrition, diarrhea, and injuries, including self-mutilation, are the main causes of morbidity and mortality in prison. In most countries where HIV, prisons are a high risk, and they can be very much higher than within the population outside the prison, especially where drug addiction and risk behaviors are prevalent. Prison staff are also vulnerable to most of the diseases to which prisoners are at risk. Prisons are not isolated from the society, and indeed, prison health is public health. Now, back to my caveat that I mentioned earlier. I am not in favor of prison reform for the most heinous of criminals who walk the earth, people like Tex Watson, Leslie Van Houten, and Charles Manson, to name a few. I do believe those type of crimes, i.e. vicious murders, which were committed for spree killers and not in self-defense, I believe those criminals should be locked up and serve out their life sentence and or be executed depending on the judgment of the state in which they were sentenced. I do not believe those people should be allowed re-entry back into society, no matter how much education, how many years they have served, or how much good time in prison they have received. I do not believe in that at all. Some of the references I used while completing this video are as follows. Our textbook, Introduction to Criminal Justice by Siegel and Worrell, and the Charles Koch Institute. I would like to thank you, Professor Theory, for allowing me to make this video and express my opinion. Thank you so much.